Hey everybody, Dustin Thompson, Chapter Director for the Sierra Club Delaware chapter, here for the final video in our large load tariff video series. I hope you've been enjoying them so far. I've been enjoying sharing this information with you. Hopefully you find it useful and you can share it with your friends and family and come out and comment on Wednesday, February 25th at 6 p.m. at the Public Service Commission when we're going to be hearing public comments about Delmarva's proposed large load tariff. So, what's in Delmarva's proposed large load tariff? Well, first, if you found this video first, please go back and watch the other videos in the series here on large load tariffs and learn more about what a tariff is, why we need one for data centers, and how it can help protect Delaware families and businesses. Check out those other videos. Okay, so what's in Delmarva's proposed large load tariff and what the public should comment on February 25th? Well, if you watched the last video, then you know what should be in a large load tariff, so we'll start with that list. I'll keep this brief by saying that they being Delmarva, proposed none of what was said in the last video. They are really only proposing a year-to-year contract, not a long-term contract for data centers. In fact, the only agreement that's longer than a year is the one for transmission investments that Delmarva makes that are exclusively for data centers. And as you folks have known by watching our previous videos, transmission investments are not usually exclusive to one user, so often they get out of even that requirement of the tariff, forcing all of us to pay for all of these costs. And even if they do enter into that agreement, it's only for 10 years. And again, you heard me in my last video, oftentimes those take 20 some years in order to pay back. So 10 years, not really going to cut it, particularly if there's no exit fees, which there aren't. There are no exit fees if the data center packs up and leaves town. That puts us on the hook for those stranded assets that I talked about in our last video. There are also no must-buy provisions, meaning that if Delmarva contracts for a bunch of power and the data center doesn't use it, we could be on the hook for those excess costs related to those contracts. And we could also be on the hook for bad debt related to those contracts. Now there's also, it gets better, there's also very little in the way of transparency and no prohibition on secret deals and non-disclosure agreements when it comes to large loads and data centers looking to connect and make a contract with Delmarva. Delmarva is also suggesting that data centers pay the same rate for public benefit programs as you and me, even though data centers will have a much larger impact on the success and the reach of those programs. I gave you the example of the impact of data centers on energy affordability and what that does to low-income families, and why data centers should pay more into the low-income fund than you and I. So what does the tariff do? Well, not much, and that's by design. All Delmarva really did at the heart of it was take one of their existing tariffs, their transmission user tariff, and they renamed that for large load users. Now that transmission tariff has existed before, and it was for energy users that tap right into the transmission system, those high voltage, really large power lines, instead of the distribution system, poles and wires outside of our house, which is what you and I and other countless businesses in Delaware connect to. So if you connected to those high voltage lines, you use this transmission user tariff. And so they just basically renamed that one and kept pretty much everything else the same. It wasn't specifically designed with data centers in mind, which is exactly what we need. Again, if you watch the previous videos, you know that we build these new rate classes to meet the needs of a new industry with unique characteristics. This tariff does not deal with any of those characteristics that are unique to data centers. That is why we need to demand better. We need to demand that the PSC send Delmarva back to the drawing board to put those protections into place. We must demand that the protections that are found in House Bill 233 are in the tariff, or we just need to pass that bill and force them to do it. Delaware families and small businesses cannot afford to pay to subsidize this trillion-dollar industry. They can afford to build their own clean power. They can afford to build their own infrastructure, and they can afford to pay for the power that they demand and contribute to these programs that benefit Delaware families and programs that they are going to have a much larger negative impact on. We can demand better from data centers, and Delaware families deserve no less. So that's the series. I hope that the series was helpful, and I hope that you can join others on February 25th at 6 p.m. in person in Dover at the PSC building or on Zoom to comment on Delmarva's proposal and tell the PSC to send them back to the drawing board to come up with a real tariff that protects Delaware families. If you enjoyed the series, please share it with your friends and get them to comment on February 25th.